Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're looking at a company that really screams potential. New Pacific Metals.
Mm-hmm.
Some analysts think this stock is, well, seriously undervalued,
Mm-hmm.
like a coiled spring,
Yeah.
but there's definitely a cloud hanging over it. Risk.
Exactly. And that's the fascinating puzzle we're tackling today, isn't it? New Pacific Metals, they clearly have some very attractive assets, especially their silver sand project down in Bolivia.
Right.
So to get a handle on this, we've dug into, well, mining industry reports, mining.com, that kind of thing. We looked at the due diligence chatter, the stuff you see on Reddit, like our Canadian investor.
Ah, okay. The retail view.
Yeah, and some stock valuation basics from Investopedia, just for context. And crucially, New Pacific's own really detailed reports, their preliminary economic assessment and the pre-feasibility study for silver sand, plus their early look at the Carangas project, too.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Our goal, really, is to figure out why this undervaluation might exist, despite the obvious risks. And a huge piece of this puzzle, I think, is Silver Corp. They own a significant chunk of New Pacific.
A very significant stake, yeah.
So what does that signal? When a major player like that with deep pockets takes such a big position, and for you listening, we want to understand if the potential for, really high returns here actually outweighs the dangers, especially that possibility the Bolivian government may be stepping in.
Yeah, the nationalization question. Let's start with why some people see this as a potentially massive opportunity. New Pacific Metals' flagship asset right now is silver sand.
Okay.
It's in the Potosi department of Bolivia, about 33 kilometers northeast of Potosi City itself. High Andes location, we're talking over 4,000 meters elevation.
Wow. And the silver there. The resources are substantial, right? I mean, it's not a small deposit.
Oh, absolutely not. As of late 2022, they were reporting measured and indicated resources. Let me see, 54.26 million tons, and the grade was 116 grams per ton silver.
Okay.
So that translates to, over 200 million ounces of silver, 201.77 million to be precise.
200 million ounces.
Plus there's another, nearly 13 million ounces in the inferred category. So yeah, you're looking at a project that could potentially pull out hundreds of millions of ounces of silver, which is, that's huge relative to the kind of initial investment they're talking about.
Wow. Those are impressive numbers. And the economic studies, the PEA and PFS you mentioned, they seem to suggest this could be really profitable.
They do. Look at the pre-feasibility study, the PFS. It's effective June 19th this year, so quite recent. They used a silver price of $24 an ounce for their calculation.
Okay, $24. Seems reasonable today.
Yeah, and based on that, the pre-tax net present value, that's, the discounted value of all the future cash flow, it's over $1 billion, $1,135 million.
$1 billion pre-tax. Okay. What about after-tax?
Still very healthy. $740 million post-tax NPV using a 5% discount rate.
$740 million. That's still a big number.
It is, and the returns look good, too. The internal rate of return, the IRR, is projected at 50% pre-tax and 37% post-tax.
Pretty decent returns. What's the initial cost to build it?
They estimate the initial capital needed is $358 million. And the payback period post-tax is really quick, under 2 years, 1.9 years, actually.
Wow. Less than 2 years to get your money back.
So these figures, yeah, they suggest it could be a very profitable mine with a quick return if everything goes according to plan.
That's the big if, isn't it? So, okay, on paper, silver sand looks amazing. You also mentioned Carangas briefly. Is that a major factor in this whole undervaluation idea?
Well, silver sand is definitely the main engine right now. It's more advanced. The economics are clearer. But Carangas, yeah, it has an upper silver zone, a lower gold zone. It definitely represents sort of additional potential down the road.
More blue sky.
Exactly. The early assessment, the PEA for Carangas, suggests more upside, but honestly, the buzz right now, the undervaluation talk, it's mostly centered on silver sand and those really strong PFS numbers.
Okay, got it. So the potential upside seems, well, pretty substantial. But like you said, these projections assume things go smoothly, which brings us right to that crucial question. The political situation in Bolivia. The risk of nationalization. This is the cloud.
Yeah, this is where the risk factor gets very, very real for investors. So New Pacific operates in Bolivia under what's called a mining production contract, an MPC.
Right.
That's with the state mining company PowerBall. And this MPC covers their main areas of interest at silver sand, 12 specific mining rights areas, ATEs, and 196 quadriculas, which are like grid units.
Right.
On top of that, they also hold some mineral rights directly, 100% owned, but that's a smaller area.
Okay, but the main deal is with the state company, PowerBall.
Correct. And here's the kicker. That MPC with CONMEBOL, it needs to be officially ratified, approved by the Bolivian Congress to be fully locked in.
Ah. And needing Congress to sign off, that really highlights the government's role, doesn't it?
Mm.
It's a clear reminder they have a big say here.
Absolutely.
And this must tie into that broader concern we saw flagged in the mining.com report about resource nationalism.
Exactly right. That report pointed to this growing trend globally, really, where countries that are rich in key minerals are, let's say, increasingly leaning towards more state control over those resources.
Right.
It can mean different things: higher taxes, tougher regulations, or, yeah, in the most extreme cases, outright nationalization, where the government just takes over the assets.
And the worry is that scares off investment.
That's the potential vicious cycle they mentioned. Yeah. Increased disputes, more perceived risk, less investment coming in.
Okay, so let's bring that specifically to Bolivia. How worried should investors be? Is there a history or current signs that nationalization is a really probable threat for a project like Silver Sand?
Well, the sources we looked at for this deep dive, they don't give us like a detailed blow-by-blow history of Bolivian nationalization events, but the very fact that this operating agreement, the MPC, needs that congressional sign-off, that itself underlines the political leverage involved.
Yeah, it's a hurdle.
It's a political hurdle, exactly. It adds a layer of uncertainty that maybe wouldn't exist in, say, Canada or Australia. Someone with a different kind of mining policy history.
Mm-hmm.
So it naturally makes you ask, is this political risk big enough to cancel out the really attractive economics of silver sand? Especially when you think about it from, your perspective as maybe a retail investor.
And that brings us to Silvercore,
Mm-hmm.
that other critical piece. They're a major player, they've clearly done their homework,
Yeah.
and they've put serious money into New Pacific.
Yep, a stake of around, 28%, I think. It's significant.
So how should someone listening interpret that? Does Silvercore's conviction mean the risk is maybe overblown?
It's definitely a strong signal. You have to assume a company like Silvercore, with their size and expertise, has done incredibly thorough due diligence. That includes, a deep dive into the political risks, the operational risks in Bolivia.
Right, they wouldn't just throw money at it.
Exactly. Their investments suggest they feel comfortable, or at least that they believe the potential rewards justify those risks. Or maybe they think they have ways to manage those risks effectively.
But here's the thing I keep coming back to. Are Silvercore's risk calculations the same as mine? Or yours, listening?
That's a really crucial point.
They have a massive portfolio, probably different time horizons, maybe just a different appetite for risk altogether.
I think that's absolutely right. A major corporation like Silvercorp, they're diversified, they have huge financial resources. They might be willing and able to absorb risks that would just be, unacceptable for an individual retail investor, someone whose portfolio might be more concentrated, maybe needs returns sooner.
Yeah.
Their ability to navigate complex political stuff, maybe even absorb a loss if things go south. It's just on a different scale. So yeah, Silvercore's investment is encouraging, it's positive, but it doesn't automatically mean the risk profile is right for every investor.
This kind of reminds me of some of those discussions you mentioned, like on Our Canadian Investor, about doing due diligence on junior miners. What's the general feeling there about these high potential but also high risk type plays?
Well, you often see a lot of emphasis there on just how volatile and speculative junior mining investments can be. Inherently so.
Right, it comes with the territory.
It does. There's usually a healthy dose of skepticism about just relying on the economic projections alone, because these smaller companies, they're often way more vulnerable to external shocks. Things like permitting delays, drilling results that disappoint, and, exactly this kind of thing, political changes, new regulations.
So don't just look at the shiny NPV number.
Pretty much. The general advice often boils down to do your own really deep research, look beyond the headlines, and be very clear about the potential for losing a significant amount of your investment. So even with a great pre-feasibility study like Silver Sands, it doesn't just erase the basic risks that come with being a junior miner, especially in a place that might be seen as less stable.
Okay, so even with those impressive NPV and IRR numbers for Silver Sand, the junior miner label itself, plus the Bolivian context, adds these extra layers of complexity and risk. Let's circle back to the upside potential for a minute, though. Beyond just the main silver resource, are there other things adding to this idea that it might be undervalued?
Absolutely. The geological data, the drilling they've done, it shows there are other metals present. Things like lead, zinc, even some copper in the drill cores at Silver Sand.
Okay, base metals.
Exactly. Now, the current economic studies, the PFS, they're mostly focused on the silver value. But these other metals, the byproducts, they could potentially add extra revenue, enhance the project's overall profitability down the line if they can be recovered economically.
Right, icing on the cake, potentially.
Could be, and the exploration potential seems pretty significant too. It's not like silver sand is the only thing they found there, right?
You mentioned other prospects.
That's right. New Pacific has identified, I think it's 11 distinct mineralized prospects across their property holdings there.
11, wow.
Yeah. Silver Sand, El Fuerte, San Antonio, Alagas, a whole list. And many of these, the ones outside the main silver sand deposit area, they've really only seen very limited drilling so far.
So, lots of room to potentially find more.
That's the hope, yeah. It suggests there's a real possibility for more discoveries, maybe significantly expanding the total resource space in the future. They've identified this silver mineralized belt that's quite long, about 7.5 kilometers long and maybe 2 kilometers wide.
That's a big area.
It is. And even the main silver sand deposit itself, the reports say it remains open at depth, meaning they haven't found the bottom of it yet. Deeper drilling could potentially find even more silver.
Okay, so genuine exploration upside on top of the known resource. Now let's touch again on the political climate in Bolivia. Our sources for this dive didn't give us like a super detailed, up-to-the-minute political analysis.
No, they focus more on the project specifics and the general risk category.
Right. So what should someone listening be thinking about here? What kind of homework should they be doing?
Well, the fact that we don't have that deep political dive right here actually highlights how critical it is for anyone interested to do their own independent research on this.
Makes sense.
You really need to understand, or try to understand, the current government's stability. What are their actual policies towards foreign investment, especially in mining? What's the general feeling in the country, public sentiment towards mining projects? These are all crucial pieces of the puzzle.
And that congressional ratification for the PowerBall contract you mentioned.
That's a very real, very tangible political milestone to watch. Any signs of trouble there or any big shifts in the overall political landscape in Bolivia could obviously have a huge impact on the project's future, its timing, its viability.
Okay. So let's try and bring this all together for our listener. You've got this potentially massive silver resource at Silver Sand, strong economics on paper. How should a retail investor weigh that potential against the, let's be honest, real risk of political instability, maybe even nationalization in Bolivia? And where does Silvercore's big investment fit into your personal calculation?
Yeah, it really boils down to your own individual risk tolerance, doesn't it? And how much
Yeah.
homework you're willing to do. The potential for high returns here, based purely on the Silver Sand project specs, it looks undeniable, big numbers.
Right.
But the risk of government intervention, call it political risk, nationalization risk, while maybe a company like Silvercorp sees it as manageable within their huge global portfolio,
Yeah.
well, that same risk could be a much, much bigger threat to your portfolio if you're an individual investor. It could be devastating.
So Silvercore's involvement is positive, but it's not like a guarantee for you.
Exactly. It's a positive data point, a sign of confidence from a smart industry player.
Mhm.
But it absolutely should not be the only reason you decide to invest. You have to assess your own ability to handle potential losses, maybe significant ones. And you absolutely need to do thorough research into the specific political and economic realities in Bolivia right now.
Right. It's not just about the numbers in that PFS report. It's about the whole environment those numbers depend on. And that environment, it seems, carries some pretty significant uncertainties.
Precisely. Those headline economic figures, the NPV, the IRR, they paint an enticing picture. But they all operate under certain key assumptions. Assumptions about political stability, about consistent regulations, about getting that congressional approval smoothly.
Mm.
For you, as a retail investor, really understanding and trying to evaluate how likely those assumptions are to actually hold true in Bolivia, that's paramount. That's the homework.
Okay. So to wrap up our deep dive into New Pacific Metals then.
I think the core of the story is really this tension, this balance.
Mhm.
On one side, you have very significant potential upside. It's driven by those impressive silver resources and the projected economics of the Silver Sand project. Looks great on paper.
Right.
But on the other side, you have considerable non-trivial risks linked to operating in Bolivia. And the most prominent one everyone talks about is that risk of nationalization or major government intervention.
And Silvercorp fits in how?
Silvercore's major investment is a really key piece of information. It suggests confidence from a big, experienced player, But again, individual investors just have to recognize that their own risk profile, their own investment goals might be very, very different from a large corporation's.
Which leads us perfectly to our final thought for you, the listener, to mull over. Thinking about your own specific investment goals, your own tolerance for risk. Does the potential reward that New Pacific Metals seems to offer truly compensate for those inherent political risks in Bolivia? Risks that are largely outside the company's control and hard to diversify away from.
Yeah, and consider that a giant like Silvercorp likely operates with very different strategic aims and risk thresholds than you do. So, what specific extra information, what political developments, what economic reassurances out of Bolivia would be absolutely critical for you to see before you'd feel comfortable making an investment decision here?
Something to think about.
Definitely. And it's crucial to remember our chat today is based on the sources we had available. We really encourage you to dig deeper yourself. Look at New Pacific's actual filings, do your own research on Bolivia's current political climate, and please carefully consider your own investment strategy and risk appetite before doing anything.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for taking this deep dive with us today.